Hello and welcome to Live and Ready for You. I'm your host, Helen Dunnett, and today I'm with another colleague, Anne Randerson. Hi, Anne, welcome.
Hi, Helen. So great to be here. Thank you for inviting me today.
It's an absolute pleasure. And today we're covering a topic that I know really very, very little about. So, and let me just put that banner. So the topic today is, are you lost in transition? So, Anne, you're a transition coach and guide. Tell me, let's just start from the top. What do you mean by transition?
Well, at the moment, especially, people are finding themselves increasingly stressed and worried about uncertainties in their lives with COVID, with economic turmoil and other things happening. And so I help people with transition. I help people navigate their transition in their personal lives, their professional lives, their spiritual lives. So that's basically what I'm doing, just helping people get through these transitions, which are a normal part of life.
Okay. And I guess, yeah, are we always in transition?
That's a good question. We are. And a lot of people don't realize it. And so many people want to just stay as they were or as they always are because they're happy that way. But there will always be transitions. And the more people realize that, the easier it gets to navigate these. But there's always a flux, there's always a flow in life. So if we can accept that, we can learn actually to have a more joyful life.
Yeah. So, I think do you have can you talk me through an example, perhaps something that you've been through, or to help people who are watching just get what is, because perhaps we're in that transition, but we don't consider it that way. We just see it as a problem or something that, we just desperately want to get rid of. So can you give me an example of what transition looks like, feels like?
Sure. Well, I'll give you an example. So I was raised in Southern California near the border of Mexico. So I was raised bilingual, so English and Spanish in high school. So I learned a lot about cultural transitions and about multiculturalism and diversity. And then I ended up living in Belgium for 18 years. So I was living in Belgium, where we speak Dutch and French and also German. And then I went back to the States again and then came back last year. So during COVID, my partner and I relocated back to Brussels. And I realized I'd been for about 2 years, kind of locked up. I'd been on my own. And I think a lot of people can resonate with this because during COVID, during the pandemic around the world, people were, they were asked to stay at home. And so when I went out into the shops, just to a bakery, for example, I started feeling mild symptoms of social anxiety. And I'd never had this happen before. So I live in Flanders, which is the Flemish or Dutch speaking region of Belgium, and I also am French speaking. And I would go into a bakery, and before I could just buy a croissant, no problem. But I would go in and I would get really nervous. I would feel my heart pounding, my fists would get all my palms would get all sweaty, and I felt really nervous, and I was stumbling with my words, and I never had that before. And I think a lot of people have gone through transitions these past few years, and they sometimes maybe don't realize it, but it's happening around the globe. So that's just an example of reverse culture shock, actually. And I'm considering myself a culture shock expert because I've worked with people from different countries around the world. I've lived abroad over 25 years in 5 different countries. But myself, I was experiencing these symptoms of mild anxiety, and that was caused by transition, going from the pandemic, going out into society and into the world. I'd spent literally about 2 years becoming an introvert, although I was actually an extrovert. So that's just an example. And being an introvert is wonderful, but it was new to me, actually.
Yeah, and it's funny you should say that because I absolutely resonate with that. I've done these tests that say that I'm an extrovert, and actually, I think over the last years, I've become. I mean, listening to you about COVID and being in, the more I stay in, the more I want to stay in, and the more it's a real mental push to go. Okay, get outside, Helen. go and meet a human in And there's I'm not saying that makes it seem like introversion is negative, but there's definitely a sense of wanting to I need to recuperate alone. And
Mhm.
I can really resonate with that. And I find it hard to imagine you being anxious because for me, you really are somebody who's extroverted going out there. That's how we met. I mean, so gosh, that must have been very stressful.
Yeah, it was, and I think people don't realize sometimes how much stress that we're feeling right now, and feeling, especially when we're in transition or lost in transition, is what sometimes I call it. And we want to thrive, but we don't realize it. And yes, I was very stressed because I had always been out there. I taught at university for many years. I left my teaching position in the United States when we relocated back here last year, and I was in front of hundreds of students. I gave lots of speeches and no problem whatsoever. And here I was in a bakery or anywhere in a shop and just feeling very anxious. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that in life, things can happen and obstacles can happen, or circumstances change. We lose our job, we retire, we get a divorce, we move to another country, or whatever it is, or illness, of course. And we're growing older, and we all are, hopefully gracefully. But these are transitions. And if we can learn to navigate them, we can remove the stress and build our energy and our resilience and finding joy and in anticipation of what's happening next. But yeah, for me,
Uh,
it was quite a shock and an eye opener.
Yeah, and what I'm really picking up from what you're saying is just because you were good at transition naturally in the past doesn't mean you will always be. And it might catch you by surprise, which it sounds like it did for you. After many years of moving and resettling and creating a new life for yourself, suddenly it caught you in Belgium, as we were coming out of COVID. So that's really interesting, isn't it? And I have to say that really does resonate. So
Yeah, well, you're also from another country, so coming from the UK and living here, and as an expat, it is different, expat or refugee or whatever. When you're living in another country, another culture, another language, it's not always easy, and it's true. Some days are great, and other days it's like, what am I doing here? Or what is happening to me? And I lived here 18 years, so this was my 19th year in Belgium. I'm also a Belgian citizen, so there should not be a problem here. But I was feeling very self-conscious about things. And it's like when you're starting a new job and you're feeling self-conscious, or you're
yeah,
worried that maybe you might become redundant. And that's what's happening also in the workplace in COVID. And HR managers are certainly listening to this and thinking, how can I help retain the people, the people in my workforce? And these are things that we can do there are certain things we can do to help people feel more comfortable and more at ease with transitions. Yeah.
yeah. And so I'd like to get to that, but before we do, what I'd love to you mentioned a few already, like feeling anxious. What other things could I be looking for in my own behavior, um, or somebody else that I care about, whether it's a team member or
Mm.
a loved one? What signs would say that somebody's lost in translation, lost in transition?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there are certain signs, and in ourselves, I'll start with ourselves because I think it's the most important, is to find out for ourselves how we might feel a little bit lost, like we're losing some joy in our life. For example, we're not looking forward to things, and we could maybe think we're a little bit depressed. I think there was a bit of depression there for me as well. I was teaching 5 university courses with 45 students in each, class, so that's a lot. And there were people in different time zones. It was really very exciting. And all of a sudden, I come back to Belgium, unpack my boxes, with my partner who goes off to work, and I'm here alone. And I was working on my novel. It was wonderful. It was my 4th year of working on my 3rd novel, and I was enjoying the process, but I was isolating myself. And so noticing that when you go outside of your comfort zone, that you're feeling a little bit stressed and maybe you wouldn't have before, or feeling unsettled, or having questions about, why am I here, or how can I help others, or how can I help myself? These are certain things or symptoms or signs that maybe you're a little bit lost in transition. And the same thing for your loved ones. If you
Mm.
feel like they're asking some questions and wondering what is going on, what should I do next, or how can I help myself? These are certain things to maybe to look out for.
Okay. Okay. So what I heard was, and I'm just trying to put them on the screen here. So, yeah, the sense of a real not looking forward to things. There's that feeling of like, oh God, here we go again, or as you might say, the depression or um, may I dread, or just is it anxiety?
Yeah, dread or anxiety or doubting yourself. I think a lot of it could be
Doubting.
doubting yourself. I was scared to go into, to shops. It was funny because I was working on my Dutch. I speak very good Dutch, but I was working on my Dutch because it had been 9 years that I was in California not using my Dutch or my Flemish. And so I signed up for this course online, and it was a free course because in Belgium languages are oftentimes free, which is great. And it was just every Monday I needed to log in and talk to people online. And here I was afraid to talk to people online. This is crazy. I was teaching for all these years, in person and online, and here I
Yeah,
was afraid to log in and talking to people. So these are just little things, doubting yourself, wondering what's happening next, and just kind of, it's existentialist questions, actually. Who am I? Why am I here? And what is my purpose in life?
yeah. I'm
These
just
are
going to put
certain
that on.
things that people, yeah.
And just put that on screen. Doubting yourself. I think that's important. Oops, not put it on screen.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's good. So it's really so there really isn't any kind of physical sign beyond perhaps somebody feeling a bit, less enthusiastic. Perhaps that's what you might notice in
Oh,
somebody else.
there might be physical too. Like I was saying, my heart, I would get palpitations. I was starting to sweat, like my hands were sweating a lot. And that's something that I never really had before. Maybe before a sports match or a tennis match or something, but nothing, having to do with people. So it could be, and things going faster, having a feeling that things are getting out of control, that things are going faster and faster in your lives and you can't really keep up.
Oh, that I recognize.
I think we all,
Yeah.
I think we all.
Okay. Okay. So we've talked about, it could happen at any point. Just because you have been good at transition doesn't mean that you will always be good, and it can catch you by surprise. And if you are feeling a bit out of sorts because you have, that you've moved somewhere or something's happening in your life, to start looking at, yeah, you're looking at your relationship to that situation. Now, what can I do? Because, we can't stop transition. It seems to be always happening. So what can I do and to feel more comfortable in transition? If even if that's the right term, I'm not even sure if that's the right term.
Mhm. Right. No, this is a good question as well. I think slowing down is really important. And during COVID, I think a lot of people did slow down and they started to notice their values and their longings. And there was a disconnect between what they really wanted in life and maybe what they were doing as far as work or as far as relationships. So a lot of people are looking inward. So one thing I would think would be the best thing, and what I guide my coachees, because I'm a transition coach as well, is helping people look inside, slowing down, and seeing what is there, or feeling what is there. What makes me thrive? What brings me
Mm.
joy and happiness, and seeing what's there. So that's one thing, is slowing down and being with yourself. I create a sacred time. I call it sacred time, but it could be your private time. Carving out time in your day, especially in the morning. I spend a good hour. And for some people with busy schedules, they'll say, well, how can I spend an hour on myself? But it is really important. So you can get up an hour earlier, perhaps make some tea or coffee. And I meditate for 30 minutes, 45 minutes a day. And then I journal. So I write about things that come up, and that helps me empty my mind, and it also helps me become more grounded. So that's one thing. I'm a mindfulness teacher as well, so obviously mindfulness, meditation, prayer, these are all things that we can do to become at one with ourselves and understand, to become more grounded and see where we're headed. And journaling is another thing that we can do. Writing in your journal, creating art, doing movement, dance, um, being out in nature, communing with nature,
Mm.
with trees, noticing things and the small things. And I know it sounds like a cliche, the small things in life, but slowing down and taking the time to notice what is important in life to ourselves and to our surroundings is huge.
Yeah, it's funny, I'm going to play devil's advocate because, not devil's advocate, but we, as coaches, trainers, everybody is talking about this thing, mindfulness, getting out in nature, carve out more time, slow down. And I'm wondering, because the whole point of these lives is to sort of to try and give things that are practical that people in work could do. And I always check in with the old Helen who was working ridiculous hours, getting up at 4 in the morning, working weekends, working nights to get stuff done, and trying to look after 2 kids. And but we can't. Yeah, it's just what's my question? My question is, well, I think it's more of a statement. Is um, we can't get away from, it doesn't matter what way we look at it. People need to slow down, don't they? They need to actually start really choosing what they say yes to and what they say no to. And because, yeah, and it always boils down to having less distraction, less stuff going on, looking inwards, getting clear about what's important to us. And it's true. I was a frenetic, crazy, hardworking person 10 years ago with a regular migraine and not really living, not really alive, just surviving, I guess, to the next moment. And yeah, it was very detrimental to my health, I have to say. And I just listening to you, and I was thinking, wow, it's kind of, you're so right, and it's so irritating to hear, isn't it, when you are working so hard and
I like what you said about irritating. You're right. You're playing devil's advocate, but it's true. I was also like that. I was working really, really hard and getting up at 4 in the morning to write articles to publish, and getting teaching and training and everything else. And life just goes by so quickly. And what we maybe don't realize is that we're missing out on life. And many books have been written about that, but it's true. The present moment is all that we have. We're preparing for the future so much, and we're regretting perhaps the past, that we're not really in the present. But when we can slow down and really be in the present and really enjoy what is there, or notice what is there, we might not enjoy it, but be there, then we can become more grounded and really understand when things come at us, which they will, we can be ready and prepared. It's kind of like when I grew up in Southern California, I was in the ocean a lot, and there were waves coming, and there were sometimes really big waves, and they would crash. And as a kid, I would be in there, and I seriously almost died. I mean, these huge waves, and I remember being hit by one, and I was my lip was bleeding. I'd bitten through my lip, and I came out of the water. We had to go straight to the hospital, and there were big waves like that, where you kind of risk things, and then there were small waves where it was almost a lake. It was just so calm. So some
yeah,
people talk about the calm before the storm, and that was kind of how things were. And I just knew that the waves would keep coming. They would never stop, and they won't. Same thing with transitions. It really doesn't. We want to stop things, but it doesn't. It just keeps going, and we keep aging, and things will happen. So if we can slow down and appreciate the moment and really be there, then we can prepare for what's coming, but especially enjoy what we have. Yeah.
yeah, that is so beautiful. That's made me a bit emotional, actually. Yeah,
Thank you.
no, but I mean, it's true, and I guess it's because also my dad is dying, and it makes you realize the fragility of life, and it does all come to the end, and we spend so much of our life just like little hamsters in a wheel, and it's this is it. And I know it sounds so silly. All of these things we're saying sounds so corny, but this is it. And you've really, well, whatever people think about incarnation, stuff like that. Let's just say this one's it, because this is what we're present to right now. And it's such a shame to rush through it, isn't it?
It is. We don't want regrets. And so many people before, when they're on their deathbed or before they pass or transition, because I also call that a transition, they regret things. They say, wow, I wish I really had lived. Why did I prepare so much? Or why did I do that? And it's because I think a lot of people fear, they fear losing their jobs or losing their relationships or losing other things, their houses, their possessions. But if we can really live and find that joy, what is there, who we really are, and what is our purpose in life? And it does sound cliche, but this is really what what makes meaning in our lives. If we can be there for ourselves and for others and our earth, which is supporting us, of course, and our resources, then it makes all the difference. And hopefully by the end, when we are going to go, and we never know where we're going to go, we'll realize that we've lived a life very fulfilled and satisfied. And that's my goal. And I hope for everybody that we can all live a fulfilling and satisfying life.
Mm. Oh my goodness. This is actually, I tell you what, I love this chat because it's gone in it's different from what I thought we'd be talking about. And it's actually, yeah, no, it's a really important conversation. Let me just recap, because we rushed through it, the things that we can do to be more comfortable. Correct me when I miss things, but what I heard was recommendations. So it's carving out some time for yourself. You, for example, do the morning, and it could be to practice meditation. By the way, meditation is a practice, not goal. So it's just about being present, right? You're the expert, so correct me if I'm wrong. But so it's really just about a practice, just about helping you be present. And you also mentioned about potentially journaling. It could be, if you're not into journaling and meditation, is there something else like in the morning with my cup of tea? Is there anything else I could be doing?
Yes, definitely. A lot of people like to cook. So I know you'd be surprised how many people like to bake, even in the morning. I mean, you could do this all day long, but I think in the morning is good because it sets your day and, on the right foot. So journaling, art. I do a lot of art. I show you. I do a lot of collages. I just love
Hooray!
collages. I call them my soul collages because for me it just inspires me to do a lot of art
Yeah.
or painting. Dancing. I'm also a dancer in my own way. Dancing, putting on music, singing, going out into nature, petting your cat,
Nature.
playing with your kid, whatever it is that brings you joy and that feeds you and nourishes you. Going to the movies, for example, we don't take time to go to museums and just things like that, or being with loved ones. But when we're talking about being with ourselves and maybe starting our day with a little bit of silence, but just a little bit of slowness, like drink your cup of coffee or your cup of tea or eat that muffin, but very slowly, and really taste it. And you will notice the difference. You'll notice how sweet that tastes. So these are little things
Right.
like that you can do.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is whatever you choose to do, whether it's playing with your kid or cooking, or, it's about really just focus in consciously on that one thing, feel it, smell it, experience it, rather than listening to the radio or the podcast and having a conversation, etc., and checking your emails at the same time. So it's just hone in on one thing that you really care about. Okay, getting outside, I heard that was a good one. Being in nature, yeah, that's and what else? So is there anything else that I can do, or are they the things that you really recommend to your clients?
That and maybe eating healthily as well, getting enough sleep, eating healthily, making sure that you're getting nutritious elements. And it's not always easy. Sometimes it's expensive to do that, but taking the time to prepare maybe your own food and thanking it. I'm very much into gratitude, so gratitude practice for thanking it for everything, but also not abusing substances, because it's so easy sometimes to maybe just have that extra drink in the evening, or maybe a pop-up pill or whatever it is, but not abusing substances, because that's important, and that takes us out of reality and out of the present moment. It's easier sometimes for people to just check out, but it's just such a difference when you're really there for people and for yourself, of course. And yeah, start a garden too. I think a lot of people underestimate the value of a garden or plants, or just planting something and watch it grow. It's just I take carrots and I cut off the tops and I put them in water and I watch them grow, and then I eat them. I mean, the green part. And some people say, well, that's bitter, and I say, well, yeah, but I made it myself. It's kind of a silly thing,
Yeah,
but
oh, it's
you
great.
can
No,
put
no,
in
no, I love
salad
the garden.
or soup.
There's something that we haven't covered, and sort of I'm coming back sort of into the middle. Is there, in transition, and tell me if this is not something you want to talk about, but is there anything can I control transition in any way? Is there anything that I can do to increase my, so, because with those things I hear us doing is more about calming, slowing down, managing self. But yeah, with the actual transition, is there anything I can do to increase my control of it, or feeling of, or is that just not the point with transition?
Well, the thing is with transition, it depends what it is. On life transition, for example,
Mm,
if you're going to have illness or something like that, there's some things you cannot control. Certain things like
mm,
eating healthily, sleeping, getting doctor's opinions, reading up on whatever the illness is, that's something that you can't control it, but you can read about it, become informed about it, and maybe brace yourself or prepare yourself, hopefully for healing. And prayer does help with that. That's at least a lot of the research talks about that. So that's something you can do in transition, but you can't really control. There's a lot of things we can't control. And the problem is a lot of
mm,
people think that they can control everything. And actually accepting it, realizing you're in transition, accepting that you're in transition, and paying attention to what is coming up and seeing what you can do with that. In mindfulness, we talk about equanimity. And so in equanimity, that basically means that taking everything as it is. So some things you might feel great one day and really feel awful another day or whatever, and just taking it as it is. When things pop up, just noticing it and staying in balance. And this equanimity, understanding that, also helps with the nervous system, because otherwise we go up and down, we have highs and lows. But if we can slow down, once again, slowing down, and notice what's happening in the body. Oh, my heart rate is going faster, I'm sweating, or I'm getting nervous, or my head is spinning. Noticing these things and bringing it back to the mind, the body, and the spirit, which has to do with holistic health. We forget a lot about the body sometimes, and we stay in our minds, in our heads. But if we can notice that the body is there, the mind is there, and we're all here on earth as one, this is something that people, they take for granted, they don't think about. But it is really important to notice that this is a normal part of life, this transition. So accepting it and
mm,
trusting that things will work out. In French, we say
mm.
tout s'arrange. And I love that,
Ah,
tout s'arrange, which means everything will work out. And when I was learning French years ago, I was a French major in college. I just love that because everything will work out in many ways. And sometimes we don't know what's going to happen next. But if we can accept what's happening and realize that there might be a purpose or a reason for it, that can relieve a lot of tension and stress.
oh God, that's so beautiful. That is stunning. And we've been chatting about this for close to half an hour. So I think on that beautiful note, let's call it a wrap. And yeah, so we've pre-recorded this because we thought that was the right thing to do for this show. So this is going out on the end of November, and it's the last one for this year. So, and thank you so much for being a guest on Live and Ready for You for this year. And I look forward to bringing you back next year for another discussion. Maybe
Thank
on
you, Helen.
mindfulness.
Yes, maybe, why not? I mean, I'm afraid it seeps into pretty much everything I do, but thank you so much, Helen. And I did want to say, I will be doing a retreat in May on transitions and finding your flow in Orval, Belgium, in May. And also I'm doing a workshop, a one-day workshop in Antwerp on transitions as well, if you're going to be in Belgium. So yes, thank you so much for this. It's been a wonderful opportunity. So I look forward to seeing you again
That's
soon.
great. So that's May 2023.
Yes, May 2023. Yes.
Wow. Okay, no, brilliant.
And you can
Thank
reach
God
out
you
to
use
me.
this as a
Then
platform.
anybody can reach out. I'd be happy to answer some questions as well.
Fantastic. Oh yeah. So yes, the other thing, goodness, I'm all over the place. I'm lost in transition. And so what I want to do, where are you? Here we go. So this is how people can get hold of you, Anne, if that's right, on LinkedIn. So I just took your LinkedIn URL. So if anybody has any transition questions, please reach out to Anne on LinkedIn. And thanks very much. That's a wrap. See you offline.